Right, enough of this practice. Let's get serious here in Singapore. Good evening. Humid, it is oppressive. Here in the commentary box, the air conditioning is working overtime, and so are Martin Brundle and myself with absolute grins on our faces, because this is always a lot of fun.
It is. It's not really work, is it, watching the drivers around here, but they're working hard. It's hot, it's difficult out there. I really admire the skills they've shown, especially this weekend. They've been absolutely flying, as you pointed out, and grazing the wall, not just in one particular area of the track, but pretty much everywhere, as they get a little bit more confident, and then the track tells them they're going a little bit too far. So the top four teams we know have been going well around here. The man to beat on the soft compound tyre, which we'll be using qualifying, is Lando Norris in his McLaren, of course. But we know they're close at the top, and also some outliers that are going well. With the Williams team been going well, so have the RB team as well. They seem to have dialed into a nice setup. But the good news, I think, for all of us watching is that Mercedes and Red Bull definitely improved their car overnight, judging by free practice 3 earlier on today. So grid here and your grid position is super important, Crofty.
And judging by FP3, Ferrari and Charles Leclerc didn't quite get their tyres A, working, and B, with the right pressures during that final practice session. They've been fined €5,000 for having a mechanic charge into the pit box and readjust the pressures before Charles Leclerc went back out again. That's against operating procedure. But what's more important, I think, Martin, is that Charles Leclerc, if the pressures weren't right, if the tyre temperatures weren't right, shouldn't be discounted out of this qualifying, because in FP2 yesterday, under the lights in the dark, he was very close to Lando Norris.
Yeah, they're all on a knife edge in terms of tyre setup and just jockeying the cars around over the bumps and curbs between the walls we talked about, and if they get it right, then they'll certainly get a premium in terms of grid position. The calm eyes there of Charles Leclerc, and trying to control the nerves. It's an edgy time. One of the most comfortable places to be, probably the most comfortable place to be, unless you're doing a long run, is sitting in the car. It's tailor-made for you. It's home, it's cozy, and you're ready to go.
Probably an edgy time for Max Verstappen as well. He's been outside the top 5 in Q3 at the last 2 races. Hasn't taken poles since Imola, although he was fastest in qualifying in Belgium before that grid penalty. 30 seconds to Mars here. We're almost ready to rock out on the track, and someone's going to go in for the kill when it comes to pole position a little later on. 7 poles in the first 7 races in 2024 for Max Verstappen. No pole at the last 10 races. What can he do tonight? And it's Ferrari who have taken pole here in each of the last 3 runnings of the Singapore Grand Prix. Mentioned Williams, Alex Albon has been on form, but he's grazed the walls as well. Franco Colapinto, his teammate, has been very much up for the challenge as well. It's all smiles in the packed grandstands here in Singapore as we welcome our viewers to Sky Sports' main event, just in time for the start of qualifying in the cars. Esteban Ocon and Zhou Guanyu first, filing out of the pit lane. If you want to ride on board with any of the 20 drivers in this first part of qualifying or throughout qualifying, you can do so. You need your Sky Sports app, your Sky Sports login, and you can choose your favourite driver. Sky Q, Sky Glass, Sky Stream customers, and now TV, you can use the interactive button on your remote control. And I love the fact that Cool and the gang are here, ready for a celebration, keeping cool, Martin. basically impossible in this part of the world.
Yeah, it's a little bit muggy out there, but we're very used to that here in Singapore. And they're creeping out of the pit lane. They don't want to take any life, any energy out of those tyres. Use them for the lap that matters, which is the first flying lap. Ted, what have you got for us?
Yeah, apparently some guy called Kravitz is here tomorrow playing.
Your cousin?
Lenny, yeah. Well, catch up with him if I can. Right,
Nice.
green flag and 2 red Ferraris out on track. And I'm interested to see the Ferraris going out early to get some information on whether the track has changed in their favour or whether there's still no grip in the car as to what happened in free practice 3. Hopefully, for their sake, it's the former, not the latter. There's Lando Norris in his very cool new helmet design out in the McLaren, followed by Oscar Piastri. But watch out for the likes of Stroll, Ricciardo, Bottas, Zhou Guanyu and the 2 Alpines. They might have been towards the bottom of the standings in free practice 3, Crofty, but around these corners. Sling it into the corners here in Singapore. You never know where you might find some lap time.
And that's what Ferrari having to do on the outlap as well. They're trying to carry speed and warm up the front tyres, but then they barely touch the throttle. They don't want to put energy through the rear tyres. These are 2-wheel drive cars, just at the rear, of course. Nothing 4-wheel drive out there, or of course front-wheel drive like many road cars, and so they can use the brakes, they can use the energy of going through the corners, and they can use the throttle differently to heat up the tyres.
Raffles Boulevard, it's the longest straight on this track. And then you have the heavy braking zone at the end of it into turn 7. 19 corners in total, 12 to the left and 7 to the right. This is Lando Norris creeping around turn 7 as we talk.
Despite the decades of racing we've had on slick racing tyres, it's still a bit of voodoo, really. The chemical reaction between the tyre and the asphalt is a mystery.
Well, there's Charles Leclerc negotiating turn 2, which is what caused him a few issues on his final flying laps in FP3 in the final practice session, but he looks an awful lot better on this particular run as he makes his way round turn 5 and along Raffles Boulevard. And we've got Leclerc and Sainz, Gasly and Perez, Ocon and Bottas, Zhou Guanyu, Norris, Piastri and Albon out on the track. And I would imagine a few will leave it a little bit later because we had heavy overnight rain from Friday into Saturday here, and rubber constantly been laid down on a track where the rubber was washed away, and that looked a bit unsteady for Charles Leclerc. So maybe the best and the fastest laps are going to come right at the end of the sessions.
There was a lot of talk of rain during qualifying, but at the moment it's showing a 0% chance of that as he heads onto the Anderson Bridge. There's peril everywhere, and they're carrying so much speed. These are big cars, they're fast cars, and the precision with which these drivers control them, it just blows me away, frankly.
We talk about the new DRS zone, and here it is, turn 14 to 16, and whilst it might give more overtaking opportunities, it's caused the drivers a few issues in terms of braking into turn 16, because they're carrying that much more speed this year into that corner.
They are, and it looks like Sainz is out there doing a slow lap to prepare his tyres, but Leclerc has just got on with it.
And gets on with it to complete the lap with a 1:30.8. Now, this time last year, Yuki Tsunoda had the fastest time in Q1 with a 1:31.9. So with that extra DRS zone and the cars being a bit faster this year, we're already over a second ahead of that. Sergio Perez crosses the line quite a long way, it has to be said, behind Charles Leclerc.
A lot of understeer for Perez in the last corner. He only had to chuck it in and wait.
26.8 for Lando Norris in the first sector. He's already over a tenth of a second up on Charles Leclerc. And watching that McLaren, I suppose suitably for this night race, it is night and day between this McLaren and some of the other cars out there.
Yeah, Lando's been fast. He's been up against the wall a few times, like everybody has. What he can't afford is any kind of accident or incident that takes him out of, because he's got a great chance of pole position tonight. And it's the same for pretty much all the front runners, really. They've really got to push to the limit. They must not make a critical mistake.
Out in Q1, of course, in Baku last week, Lando Norris, yellow flag, wrong time, wrong place. Caught him out, had to back off, then aborted his lap, couldn't get into the top 15. But that banker lap of a 1:30.7, you would imagine will be good enough by the end of this session to get him safely through.
I'd have thought he'd been looking for a low 1:30 there, to be honest. I don't think he'd be super happy with that.
Well, we shall see on that one. He's already looking at this, nearly 2 seconds clear of the likes of Esteban Ocon, Valtteri Bottas, Pierre Gasly, Zhou Guanyu. They'll be the ones you would imagine will be occupying the bottom 5. Yeah, I'm sure he can go faster. But as you know, Martin, it's not just about who's fastest. At the end of this one, it's about survival, and that is not the way to survive for Carlos Sainz.
Yeah, and in the race he'd be obliged to go, and I don't know if that's the same in qualifying actually, he'd be obliged to go round the arrow. In fact, I'm sure he is obliged to go round the arrow on the outside of the track, which he didn't do.
Yeah, he gets his lap time deleted for his pains. That, I think, was on the lap that we saw him going quite slowly, and may have been a preparation lap, but no, it was one he had to abort and restart again. This much better, and he's gone fastest overall through the middle sector. You've got Alex Albon also out on the track, and Sainz already about a 1/10 of a second up on Albon through those first 2 parts of the lap. As around the final couple of corners comes the Ferrari, the winner, of course, of last year's race here, and he takes 4th fastest so far and gets out of the way of George Russell, who starts a flying lap. Alex Albon crosses the line 5th fastest, and look, 2/10 of a second difference between Albon and the Williams. Perez in the Red Bull. Upgrades on Albon's Williams, by the way, not on the Williams of Franco Colapinto. He'll get them next time out in Austin.
He will. So Williams has been showing good pace, and Colapinto too, hasn't he? He's really he's always been within a 1/10 of Albon. Really good effort from him joining so late in the season, Franco Colapinto. And Lewis Hamilton struggled again, didn't he, in FP3? The car was awful. It was riding the bumps worse than any car I saw out on the track yesterday afternoon, and it looked a real handful. They appeared to have improved it overnight. George Russell got a good time in this morning, but Lewis was still very unhappy with his, and you can see how low it's running, how hard it was hitting the ground when he got to VMAX top speed. Yeah,
Lewis's thoughts at the end of the practice day yesterday was that it carried on like that, he was going to struggle to get into Q3. His teammate George Russell, look, half a second off the pace through the first 2 sectors there. And you mentioned Carlos Sainz not going to the right of the bollard at the end of the first series of corners. Well, he's been noted for failing to follow the race director's instructions. Hamilton goes ahead of Albon, Perez and Colapinto. Perez can't really improve much. It's a 1:31.5, but he stays 7th fastest. Made that 8th fastest. And George Russell crosses the line just ahead of Sergio Perez by about a 1/10 of a second.
See, on the medium compound tyres, it was a completely different story, wasn't it, in terms of the pecking order? Oh, whoops, that was... they did well to hang on to that, actually, but got in way too deep.
And he just brushed the concrete wall at turn 17. A little glancing scrape kicks up the dust a little bit. While that's been going on, Max Verstappen has just set a fastest first sector of 26.8 in the Red Bull. Verstappen making his way over the Anderson Bridge, now on the Esplanade towards the next DRS zone at the end of the middle sector of 38.2, which is pretty handy too. And as you can see, just inside a time he needs to set the fastest so far.
Yeah, Max was straight on the radio, wasn't he, early doors? Had a few issues in free practice this morning.
Copy.
But said the car is better straight away.
Verstappen round the final couple of corners then. It's been a very good lap compared to what we've seen from the Red Bull so far, and he goes 2nd fastest, 10th off the pace, behind Norris and ahead of Charles Leclerc. This on the only racetrack on the calendar that Verstappen has never won at. He's been on the front row a couple of times, but he's not been on pole here either.
And he didn't quite get that one slowed down enough in the previous left-hander. This is T8 up against the wall. It's been a little bit of a scruffy lap, but how's it looking sector-wise? Kind of okay, all doing personal bests.
Ocon goes into the top 8 on his next flying lap. Hulkenberg's already in the top 5, and Kevin Magnussen, back after missing Baku, is currently 9th fastest as Joe improves to go 16th fastest. But that's not enough to get him out of the bottom 5, and Leclerc goes ahead of Max Verstappen at just 6/100ths of a second between himself and Lando Norris. And Carlos Sainz will be going to see the stewards after the ends of qualifying for failing to follow the race director's instructions, which he clearly did, Martin. He might have mitigating circumstances, but what penalty might come his way, we shall see.
Yeah, he will say he was too deep into the corner, whatever. But yeah, he's obliged to go around the polystyrene arrow, and he didn't do it.
Pierre Gasly in the bottom 5 still goes ahead of Bottas and Joe. Colapinto is down in that bottom 5. Lance Stroll, who had the big accident, of course, in Q1 here last year and missed the race, is the slowest of all drivers at the moment. Let's just have a quick look at Max Verstappen out on the track. Whoa! That was sliding around like Simon Lazenby on a luge.
It was, but it's, ooh, wow, that could have been such a head first into the wall, and Max's cat-like reactions kept that out, as Charles Leclerc did too. But you know what? It's a year ago, we barely saw a Red Bull slide, did we? It looked like it was on rail tracks, but it's no longer the case.
Ted Kravitz, let's head down to you.
Hearing a lot on the team radio feed of lots of drivers saying the track is not in a good condition. Obviously, it's very different from the dusk conditions they ended free practice 3. We're seeing the 2 McLarens go back out, Crofty, on the same set of tyres in which they set Lando's quickest lap and Piastri's 4th fastest lap. So McLaren on track again. Everybody else is pitted. I think you need to do a 1:31.0 to be sure of getting out. About what Sainz is at the moment. He's on a 1:30.9. Alonso on a 1:31.0. So the likes of Hamilton and Russell, well, Russell's got to find 0.4 of a second. Hamilton just as much of that, and maybe more for the others, like Perez. He's got to find half a second to be sure of getting out this session.
Yeah, Perez, they're waving the Mexican flag for him, but Sergio Perez not in the greatest of positions, and he only qualified 13th here last year. Front row the year before that when he went on to win the race in brilliant style, but he's got to find some pace. Daniel Ricciardo's got to find pace too in what could be his last qualifying this year in Formula One, and maybe in his Formula One career, if all the rumours and the speculation are to be true that he won't be driving from Austin onwards and will be replaced by Liam Lawson. Here comes Alex Albon, former Red Bull driver, of course, now driving for Williams. And Alex Albon, after an impressive first go in this qualifying session, finds himself 12th and looking to make a little bit more pace. So let's follow him around.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which of the drivers feel they need to do an extra run. They've got the tyres to do it, should they want to do so. But the track will change dramatically. I suspect Norris has gone out, which I was just about to say. I suspect they'll all go out because it'll be a bit nervy if there's a huge track evolution.
And as Ted said, he's gone out on the same tyres that he set that fastest time on, so they obviously believe that track evolution will outweigh any potential wearing of performance life on the tyres that he used before.
Yeah, so while they might have loads of soft tyres, they clearly want to try and save at least one set for the race.
Might need to start on them, to be honest. This was Lewis Hamilton into turn 1, and that's not stopping in time. But that is Lewis going the right way back on the track, literally.
Because then you just fill the surface of your tyre. Your molten, slick racing tyres just pick up all that dirt. It takes a while to get it back out again. Norris then with a great first sector on those used tyres.
Albon continues on his way. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri matching each other in the first sector with 26.7s, which is very impressive. Alex Albon has set the fastest middle sector, about a 10th down on the 2 McLarens so far. Lewis Hamilton saying the track is ramping up, which happens around about this point, Martin. There's more rubber gone down, and the track temperature is falling as well.
Yeah, and the bit of dust was down we saw early on, didn't we? So it's almost a reset, the second run. And look at that. That confirms it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Albon goes fastest.
Lando Norris has gone purple. Mercedes out on the track with Lewis Hamilton and with George Russell. And the 2 Red Bulls using another set of the new soft tyre as Lando Norris goes to the 1:30.0s. Much better lap. Now he's got himself dialed in, and probably what you were looking for about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's the sort of times we were expecting, but clearly the track was not yielding the grip, and that's why they all ended up in the late 1:30s rather than the earlies. What's this going to do? A little kiss against the wall.
Tap.
Onwards. And yeah, they're really wrestling them, aren't they? Great slow-mo shots there. And then, of course, what that does in the middle of a chicane is puts you in great peril through the exit because the wall is close and unyielding.
We've got 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go here, and Charles Leclerc is going to be the last driver to leave the pit lane. He's come out just now, hoping that there'll be no yellow flags here that might put him in a spot of jeopardy. At 1:30.7 might look pretty good, but with the track ramping up and everyone out there now trying to go faster, might not be enough.
One of the all-time great qualifying laps in Formula One history is Lewis Hamilton here, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he needs another good one now. Down in 12th at the moment, but he's not done a personal best first sector.
Sergio Perez has, but 26.8, that's okay. Needs to pick up a bit more in the middle sector. George Russell did a 27.0. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, did a 26.7. So even in that pretty short for this lap first sector, there's quite a bit of variables with 1 minute and 40 seconds to go. And Hamilton still a bit off the pace here, 3/10 off Lando Norris through those first two sectors.
At least he's got a personal best in the middle sector, but he needs to light up this last chicane. And then he's really got, once he misses the wall on the outside, he's got one decision for slowing into the final corner. The car hits the ground hard on the way in. That must be so distracting, but it's P3 for now.
So could be enough then for Lewis Hamilton. Sergio Perez needs to pick up the pace. He's been out in Q1 4 times this season, has reached Q3 at the last 4 races, but he's very much on the cusp currently. Now goes 4th fastest. That's the sort of thing that Sergio Perez is looking for, but below him, lots of green sectors appearing on the timing screens, which means drivers are improving all the time, like his teammate Max Verstappen, who goes 2nd fastest. Daniel Ricciardo will be crossing the line soon. He's lighting up the timing screens as well. And let's ride on board then with the Aussie as he hits the line now, goes 12th fastest. He would have been looking for a bit more in an RB that has shown glimpses of pace this weekend.
He was fully lit, fully committed. Was Daniel there? He wasn't leaving anything on the table, so it looks like it might be all she wrote in terms of his potential there.
Fernando Alonso goes 7th fastest for Aston Martin. Here comes Kevin Magnussen, promising to get amongst it and do some good stuff this weekend. Goes 10th fastest overall, ahead of his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, who's on a flying lap currently. Yuki Tsunoda will be next to cross the line, goes 8th fastest.
Got no mate, it's totally different to FP3. Totally different, these tyres are so different.
And that's an ongoing story, isn't it? Because Pirelli were pretty upset with George or his comments in Baku, and he's saying they're not consistent. They're different every time we put them on.
Yeah, which is, you know, for a driver in Formula One, the last thing that you want. You'd get the setup the way you want it. The car should be exactly how you can make it for qualifying. And if the tyres feel different, then you're going to be sliding around still. What else have we got here? Charles Leclerc down in 11th currently. Russell then down in 12th. Stroll is out of qualifying because we've got the checker flag now, and he's only 16th fastest. Behind him, Esteban Ocon, Zhou Guanyu, Valtteri Bottas, all going faster. Ocon pushes Sainz down into 15th, and Daniel Ricciardo out of qualifying in what could be his last qualifying. Zhou Guanyu ahead of Valtteri Bottas for the time being, but only by a few 100ths. Bottas will be next across the line, goes 18th fastest, and once again out-qualifies his teammate. Pierre Gasly will be next for Alpine. He stays in that bottom 5, which is a bit surprising. Alpine fancied a better qualifying here than they had in Baku last time out. Sainz goes 6th fastest, pushes Ocon into that driver at-risk zone. And who below Ocon is putting a lap in? Has to be said, he's going to be safe because others can't quite get the lap they wanted. George Russell will survive down in 13th, and Charles Leclerc pits at the end of that lap because there was no danger from behind.
Well, read that if you can. That was all over the show, wasn't it? And Fernando Alonso actually doing a good job getting up into the top 8 there. We only lose 5 for now, but it's indicative of what's about to come in Q2, isn't it? We could get a surprise or two here, to say the least.
But for the time being, Zhou Guanyu has been knocked out in the first part of qualifying. The man who's only progressed from Q1 twice all season in Spain and at Silverstone. Valtteri Bottas, the driver who's last in the championship, is 19th here. Pierre Gasly is also out. We're on board with his teammate Esteban Ocon currently, who just survived. Lance Stroll, I think, has made it 5 5 Q1 eliminations and 6 Singapore visits. He's out too, and Daniel Ricciardo, sadly for him, might be ending his Formula One qualifying exploits with a Q1 exit. He was only 16th. Lando Norris was fastest.
So let's take a look at where it went wrong for Daniel Ricciardo, not making it through, and he ended up 16th. Down at turn 14, has a bit of a moment on the exit. The rear of the car not looking great for him there. Passes some traffic on the left-hand side, and then another one as well on the run up towards turn 16 and 17. But it's all a bit tentative into this corner and through it. You can see too many movements on the steering wheel, a snap of oversteer for good measure as well on the exit there for him. So yeah, like I say, teammate 10th, Daniel Ricciardo down in 16th. Not a great run for him. Sergio Perez, so I just load up the other one in turn 13 on that last run, had a bit of a moment just over the Anderson Bridge. Here we go, that's 12 coming out, and then 13 runs a bit too wide. Momentary lockup on the left front sends him a bit wide there. So he'll be looking to sharpen that up for the next run. And then Hamilton struggling at turn 14 as well on the exit. A bigger slide actually, this on his first run. You can see how loose the car was and how slippery the track was on that first run on those soft tyres before going back out. And then turn 16, 17 as well. Same as Ricciardo, just fighting the car the whole way through as well. Like George Russell commented later on, the car just not really connected for him, and it feels different every single time they go out there. Over to you, Crofty.
Thanks ever so much, Ant. Plenty for the drivers to be contending with out there, and don't forget the traffic as well. Max Verstappen not happy. Well, at least he kept it clean on the team radio, but not a happy man. Let's go to the RB pit wall. Lauren Mekis is with us. Lauren, if this is going to be a podium bid for Daniel Ricciardo to convince you guys that he should stay, he's going to have to do it the hard way tomorrow. That was disappointing for him.
Yeah, it's a tough exit for Daniel. You know, both cars have been quite close all weekend in terms of pace, Daniel and Yuki, and you know, we always knew it was going to be a matter of hundreds of tenths. We are out for tenths. It's a shame because the cars had quite a bit more potential this weekend, but we know that on a tight field like that, it can be part of the game. So we'll try to make it up tomorrow.
Lauren, how do we explain to the fans, yesterday you looked so competitive in the first practice session and today much less so? Why is that?
Well, you know, at first, if you look at the Q1 results, you know,
it's the best
within half a tenth of P6, so we are not going to do P6 today, but just to tell you that the gaps are now so close, and it is true that yesterday we were surprisingly in front of the two Mercedes, the two Red Bulls. We always knew that was not going to be the real pictures, so we are fighting just before these top 4 teams, and you know, if you go up or down 1/10, it will make you look like you are in P7, P8, P9 to perhaps being P15. So you really need to nail everything to sneak into the top 10.
And Lauren, we heard George Russell talking about the tyres and saying that they feel completely different one set to another. Is that something you've experienced, and how much on the knife edge are these tyres?
We were surprised this morning in FP3, certainly with the soft tyres. It was a bit more difficult to get the tyres in the right windows compared to yesterday. And you know, it's been like that all season. You know, it's always going to be a very tricky exercise, especially when you're looking at the last 10. So you know, I think over the course of the qualifying, with all drivers putting sets after the others, we will all find our way around what is needed for those tyres.
Lauren, thank you very much. We'll talk to you at the end of Q2. Light is green. Sergio Perez right out there in the at the head of the field, being told by his race engineer that that's the best thing for the outlap and to prepare the tyres in the way that he would have wanted. So after that clarification, he can now get on with it.
So only McLaren got through Q1 with one set of soft tyres. As you said, they've got plenty for qualifying, but if you do want a brand new set for the beginning of the race tomorrow, or a late safety car surge at the end of the race, then only McLaren at the moment, if they need 2 runs, everybody needs 2 new runs now and 2 new runs in Q3, a brand new set for the race. So advantage McLaren strategy-wise so far.
On board then with Sergio Perez from his front wing and showing you the speeds that he gets up to. It's not the fastest track on the calendar, a maximum speed here of 195 miles an hour, but it sure feels a lot more when you're going through the narrow Anderson Bridge and on to the Esplanade here.
Yeah, great camera angle. That one gives you a true feeling of the speed, the direction change, the rate of deceleration that these cars have. A pretty classic 90-degree right-hander there, and a long sweep left-hander. We don't go into the stadium anymore. It's down into 16, heavy braking, and a tricky little chicane that nips on the exit. That's the wall there, and then a big carry of speed into the final corner. Nail the throttle. You must stay within the white lines. And Perez then on a 30.6 on new tyres. That won't be fast enough.
Yeah, on the used tyres, so you'd expect much more grip on the new tyres for both Perez and for Max Verstappen. Well, that's a handful for Verstappen right at the corner where Lance Stroll crashed last year. Max Verstappen pulls off a mighty fine save and still goes faster than his teammate.
But he'll lose that lap time, won't he? If he was all 4 wheels off, that lap time will be deleted.
That was an absolute blur on the steering wheel as Verstappen fought to keep the car under control. Norris going very close to the wall on the exit. Max Verstappen has had that lap time deleted. He did put all 4 wheels off the track, and Lando Norris with a 26.5 has the fastest first sector we've seen so far. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, did a 26.8 in the first sector, so 0.3 down on the McLaren as Colapinto crosses the line half a second down on Sergio Perez, and just half a second down on Alex Albon, his Williams teammate.
Yeah, Norris really hooking this up a treat now as Hülkenberg goes fastest for Haas with a very good low 1 minute 30. And watch, Norris is going to pop into the 29s with this one. It's incredible speed into the last corner, all easily within track limits. Didn't quite make it, did he? He's a James Bond short, isn't he, of being in the 29s?
The 007, yeah, and 5 thousandths of a second slower than his best time in Q1. Importantly for him, though, still faster than Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, but look at Hülkenberg, a third of a second off. That's tremendous.
For a man who's reached Q3 in 7 of the previous 17 qualifying rounds this season. Talking of 7, 11th in Baku for the 7th time this season. For the 7th time, he finished one place outside the points.
What are we doing with the tyres? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
No grip.
No.
So it's preparation, it's surface temperature, carcass temperature, pressure, and if they're not all talking to each other and in the right zone, and Max had already had one adventure then on that lap by the looks of it, and here comes the second one. He's turned in and had a big swap on the bump, ran wide, and good night, thank you to that lap time.
Yeah, it didn't look great on board, and didn't look any better off board.
I tell you, once again, cat-like reactions from Verstappen to save that one.
Yeah, that was impressive, as was that. That's sliding from Lando Norris as well. The track temperature's gone down about a degree. Is that what's making the difference? Just 1 degree track temperature? Because nobody's driving around like they're on rails out there.
It's incredible, isn't it? All the genius engineers and data and simulators and data from this racetrack, but it's such a knife edge, and it looks even more of a knife edge in qualifying than in the free practice sessions. Ted, what have you got for us?
Mercedes trying something different, Martin. They sat in the garage while everybody else was going out on their outlaps in the beginning of their laps. So Mercedes out now, both on outlaps, just beginning what they hope will find some grip in their tyres. But yeah, it's going to be really tough. That Albon lap not going to be good enough. He's going to have to go again on another set. But Franco Colapinto, as has been pretty close to Albon all weekend, half a second behind. Colapinto's going to have to find some time in the second Williams as well.
Lewis Hamilton making the left turn onto that Esplanade Bridge. This is 350th Grand Prix starts when he starts the race tomorrow. Moves him ahead of Kimi Raikkonen and second on the all-time list. And trying to get into Q3 here, where he's been in the top 10 in qualifying every single year that he has raced here in Singapore.
See, well, the Haas drivers could spoil a few dreams this evening for one or two of the front runners if they keep pumping times in like that.
They certainly could. Kevin Magnussen, as Lewis Hamilton goes fastest and the first driver into the 129s. Magnussen, don't forget, has reached Q3 in each of the last 2 years here for Haas, and that's the only track that he's actually done that. He's also set a couple of fastest laps here over the years as well.
Ah, my goodness. So the Mercedes is suddenly the pace setter when it looked like, I don't know, it looked like the steering wheel was connected to the rear wheels instead of the front wheels earlier on, and suddenly they light up, and there they are, right up the top. So this is going to be like a fruit machine, isn't it? It's just going to keep tumbling around, because we are in some kind of weird space where grip and temperature and confidence.
It takes a lot to confuse you, to be fair. You've had many years here.
And I'm still really struggling out here. Don't know where all his grip has gone since practice.
Yeah, I've understood.
The thing is, George, you might be feeling you've lost all the grip. You've probably got a bit more grip than a lot of the others out there. One thing is for sure, these are shiny new soft compound tyres for Max Verstappen that he is treating very, very carefully indeed on his outlap as he comes back out onto the track with 6 minutes to go in Q2. And his first lap time was deleted because he had a big tank slapping moment that could have ended up with his car in the wall. He saved it, but he didn't save the lap. So far, Max Verstappen yet to get a lap on the board here.
I'm being told that his previous lap, when he had the big slide wide in the last corner, was on used tyres. So if he can get through this on one set of new ones, then he's back in the game in terms of options available for the race.
Qualified 11th here last year, was just knocked out of the top 10 by Liam Lawson right at the end of the Q2 session. This is the only race last year that Red Bull didn't win. How different the championship seems. Even though Max is leading the Drivers' Championship, McLaren have the lead in the Constructors. How different it all seems some 12 months later. Loving every time we go down to see what's happening on the pit wall, or we hear from Ted, you can hear the cheers of the fans in the background. The fans here have been buzzing for this race ever since we landed and came into town.
It's same as at Le Mans as well. Cars always look 25% faster, sound 25% louder at night.
Right. You better raise your voice then. Here comes Max Verstappen. Take us through this one, Martin.
Hang to the right-hand side. It's a left-hander coming up. Tricky little chicane. There's a bump right in the middle there. And they just balance the throttle, pick it up now, go against the wall and floor it. 4's a nothing. 5 is a massively fast, 90 mile an hour minimum speed, up against the wall through the exit. A long curve through 6. Stay away from the walls, don't get any drag from the walls. Pick your braking point, get it all slowed down, off the brakes, you're in the right gear, pick up the throttle, drive between the 2 chicanes, let the car turn and pick up the throttle again as soon as you're confident you've got enough space. Straight into another block change, 90 left, down the back straight, so close to the wall, but a miss is as good as a mile. A little right curve into this tricky corner, a chicane onto the Anderson Bridge, and you're really trusting the front axle there that it give you the grip, hit the brakes. You've got to be so accurate and precise out of here because any kilometre or mile an hour you take out of there will give you a benefit all the way down the next straight. Downhill braking zone, a little bit tricky. Traditional 90 right, minimise the angle of the corner. And now you've got the left kink heading towards the final chicane. And the car really bottoms out hard there. As you turn in, you need to touch both curbs. The back end just about the right amount of slide. This one is working out a lot better for him. Into the final corner and over the line.
Comes Max Verstappen to go fastest with that 1:29.6, and I tell you what, he's done lap after lap after lap in qualifying in his career. He's taken 40 poles, and that was as good as some of those pole positions in a car that has been struggling. That was as near to perfection in terms of where he placed that car as you could get.
And the car was a little bit alive. Max was just carrying the speed. I mean, in that final chicane before the last turns, he really was. You could just see the car was right on the edge of the right amount of yaw, the right amount of sliding. He carried it and drove it and sort of hustled it, and that was more the Max we're used to seeing driving a Red Bull than perhaps we've seen in for a few races now.
Yep, there's an indication of the hustle at turn 14. It might not be the fastest time. It might be the fastest time. We don't know in this Q2 session. But I hope it gets him through into Q3 because you want to see Max Verstappen competing with the rest. And you said just the right amount of slide.
Yeah, he corrected it very quickly and got you. When you're going sideways, you're not going forward at the right rate, basically. But at the same time, a car's always sliding, by the way. A Formula 1 car or a racing car, you're always sliding somewhere. And that's your job. Find the limit of grip and drive to it or slightly over it if you can get away with it and you've got enough talent.
He was 8th on the grid, was Esteban Ocon this time last year, but he has failed to finish in his last 3 starts, and he's trying to get into the top 10 at the moment, has the slowest time on the board. And to compare first sectors, Ocon to Leclerc, there's 0.4 of a second difference between the 2 cars. Nice first sector for Charles Leclerc with 1.5 minutes to go here. 26.6 Oscar Piastri is a 10th down on Leclerc. It's 0.2 up on Carlos Sainz in terms of the Ferrari battle. Leclerc to Sainz, and Esteban Ocon through the next left-hander at turn 13 will be coming to the end of the middle part of the lap and does need to be picking up the pace a bit more.
Mercedes out on used tyres now, again trying to buy themselves a new set for the Grand Prix with their allocation. A bit nervy that'll be for George Russell, I'm going to imagine, down there in 4th at the moment. Should be okay.
Yeah, he's got a difference of about half a second between himself and Sergio Perez, who's currently 10th, as Ocon gets very close to the wall at turn 17. Sainz isn't necessarily picking up the pace in the way he would want to in the Ferrari. Ocon stays in that bottom 5, moves to 11th. That'll be him out of qualifying. Here comes Charles Leclerc as Piastri has gone fastest. Leclerc goes 3rd fastest overall, and we've now got 4 drivers into the 1:29s on board with Carlos Sainz. Bit tentative on turn in and goes 6th fastest. He's nearly half a second down on Piastri.
And Russell down to 7. Russell has gone out on saying Russell outlap, which is odd with so little time to go. But
he'll just get to the line in time.
Yeah. Here comes Fernando Alonso ringing out up against the walls. Will this get him into the top 10? Yes, it does. Perez is out at the moment.
Perez with a 26.9 in the first sector, not exactly setting that part of the track alight. Kevin Magnussen goes 12th fastest. He's out of qualifying as well, along with Esteban Ocon. Albon and Colapinto both improving. Tsunoda goes down to 11th. Albon into the top 10, trying to reach Q3 at 4 races in a row for the first time as a Williams driver. But could his teammate deny him? No, Colapinto, who beat him in Baku, slots in behind him here, and he's out of qualifying too. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda. Albon's out of qualifying. Yuki Tsunoda goes 8th fastest in the RB.
So who are we watching now on a lap? Perez is trying, but it's not working. Perez currently down in, unlucky for some, 13th, and stays there.
He does. Sergio Perez once more here in Singapore is out of qualifying as Nico Hülkenberg goes 7th fastest ahead of George Russell, who has probably backed off a little bit. Sergio Perez 13th, that's where he started in last year's Singapore Grand Prix, and it's history repeating itself here tonight for Sergio Perez. The car is a handful. His teammate 2nd fastest though. Perez just couldn't get the speed.
And he hasn't looked like he's had the speed, has he really, to be fair? Sergio has been struggling to find the ultimate pace in that car, but Russell did sneak through in 8th relatively comfortably with Alonso 3/10 behind him, and Albon and co. Good effort again. Colapinto just behind Alex Albon. Not too bad for Williams there. But Hülkenberg and Tsunoda are the drivers that have very much spoiled the day for Sergio Perez.
Certainly have, and possibly for Kevin Magnussen as well, who fancied his chances of getting into that top 10, but he's out. Ocon's out. Perez, Colapinto, Albon out. Norris backs off, 5th fastest. His teammate Piastri was the quickest.
Tough quality, Alex. You did everything.
Who takes her 2nd win of the season.
Yes!
Of course, our next race, we will be heading to the street circuit of Singapore.
I'm really looking forward to racing in Singapore. It's a really interesting track.
It's absolutely incredible being in the streets. I can't wait to go racing at the Marina Bay street circuit. See you there.
Welcome back to Singapore, where Alex Albon out by 200.
You did everything you could for well for that was. Yeah, I know. There's one car.
Really tight. That's
I'm really sorry.
12.
Yeah, sorry.
Franco, it's a good lap. You put it together. I don't think we were quite there on all the tyres, but well done on your side. Everything you could have done is there.
Yeah, so lots of drivers suffering, obviously, with the tyres still. It seems every single set that goes on, it's a new game for them. So, yes, catching many out. And Colapinto as well. It wasn't only his teammate, Alex Albon. So I picked him up in turn 5. You can see what a wrestle this was for him on the exit. Oh, so close to stacking it into the wall at very high speed. And then again for him through turn 10 and 11. Watch for this is 10, and then on the exit of 11, the rear once again stepping out, clearly suffering with overheating there. And that's something for the team to be looking into for next time, but tomorrow obviously a very different day on how you use the tyres. And then we have Sergio Perez. Turn 16 is where he was really fighting the car. If that loads, yes it does. So look at this for a wrestle. Just not happy with what the car's doing for him, and just you lose confidence all the way as a driver when that happens. Back to you, Crofty.
Thanks ever so much indeed, and Sergio Perez out 13th. It's where he started last year. Daniel Ricciardo out 16th. It's where he started here in his last Singapore Grand Prix, and he's talking to Craig Slater.
By much, but based on practice, I guess we were looking for a bit more, and guess you would have expected more as well.
Much more, yeah. Yes, it was good, and I know it's only practice, but we were, from really the first run, we were always up there, and so we didn't really change much overnight. But even the medium this morning, we were okay, and then the soft, every soft I used today, I was not competitive at all. So not much to say.
Yeah, listen. There's obviously been the spotlight and a bit of noise around you. Has it been easy to block that out? And what is your mindset heading into tomorrow?
I'll get a day of community service if I swear. So let's leave it there.
Meanwhile, for the first time since Hungary, that man, Yuki Tsunoda, is into Q3. Laurent Mekis. There's a couple of surprises in there. Alonso, Hulkenberg, and no, I don't think Tsunoda. We expected at least one of your cars in Q3.
Look, as you say, it's been a while. Since Budapest, we have worked very hard to try to bring the car back to the competitive window. So it's good to have a car there. It's a shame we don't have both there, because probably on most of the weekend we have the pace, but that's the way it is. But as you say, there is 2 cars that we feel we need to fight and beat in that Q3 group. It's Nico and Fernando. So that will be the challenge for us to try to properly top that midfield.
A quick technical question, Laurent. With these tyres, when you fill them up with air, do they get purged to make sure it's very humid here, for example? I'm trying to get in my head all the experience I have of what makes a variability with a tyre performance. Are they purged? Because you have to put normal air in them now.
Yeah, absolutely, Martin. It is now very standard what all teams are allowed to do, and that's in the regulations and within the Pirelli procedure. So it's not like in the old days where each team had a different gas and different way to purge the tires. It's now the very same for everyone. It is true to say that, you know, the C5, the softest compound, it always presents more challenge, and it was certainly more difficult to get the peak performance out of them throughout the day. So let's try to see if we can nail it on that final set. We only have 1 set left, so we'll go on use tires with Yuki and try to get our final attempt in the last part of the Q3.
All the best, good luck, and thank you. Laurent Mekis on the RB pit wall. Out on the track, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri, 5 front rows in his Formula One career. Front row at each of the last 2 races. Max Verstappen, who hasn't been on pole since Imola earlier this season. Lewis Hamilton out on track, hasn't been on pole since Hungary 2023. Lando Norris, the man who's been on pole 4 times this season and 3 in the last 5 races, out on track. Hulkenberg and Tsunoda out on track as well, and they're queuing up. Fernando Alonso, who hasn't been on pole now for what, 4,444 days, and the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz.
2 Ferraris are brand new tyres. This looks like it must have gone out on new, surely.
I think they were new, but it looked so dusty in the pit lane. As he came out into it, there was a layer of dust taking off the shine.
And Alonso definitely on the used tyres. So this is it. I wouldn't want to be, I wouldn't want to be betting my mortgage on who's going to be on pole, to be honest, because This is such a knife edge. This is so unpredictable. And if somebody really hooks a lap up, they could get a shocker of a pole, or maybe an expected pole.
Well, last season, less than 8/100ths of a second covered the top 3 cars in Q3 here in Singapore. And the man who was on pole was Carlos Sainz for Ferrari. Ferrari have been on pole here for the last 3 years. Sergio Perez was on the front row this time last year. He is out of qualifying. And it was Lewis Hamilton, it was George Russell who was up there as well for Mercedes. Hamilton qualified in 5th place.
Hamilton in the Mercedes now, of course, going to Ferrari. We just saw, while you were looking at the charts there, Crofty, we just saw Kimi Antonelli, who will be out there getting hot and sweaty and a little bit scared next year for Mercedes.
At 21.5 years younger than Lewis Hamilton as well. So youth comes in for experience, who, as you say, is off to Ferrari.
Formula One drivers are like policemen. They just get younger and younger, don't they? As old people like me say.
Well, here's the arresting sight of Oscar Piastri then out on the track, who is no longer the youngest driver in Formula One this season. Franco Colapinto has got that honour for the moment. So 26.6 for the first sector, and Verstappen fractionally faster with a 26.5. Hulkenberg on the used tyres at 26.9. And surely someday the pole will come for Oscar Piastri. He keeps knocking at the door. 5 front rows. It's not always where you start, it's where you finish, as he proved last week, but starting here on pole would very much help.
The McLaren wagging its tail a little bit, complaining under traction onto that straight. And what have we got? We've got a 26.5. That's not quite as quick as we have seen in qualifying. So, and a cracking middle sector for Max Verstappen as well out there.
Yeah, he's picking up a lot of pace in that middle part of the lap. 4/10 on his teammate Sergio Perez in Q2 in the final laps. But he's got 3/10 up on Oscar Piastri, who crosses the line, can't get into the 129s, and someone's gone off at the final corner, and it's Carlos Sainz. And we've had another accident at the final corner, and a red flag as well. This time last year it was in Q1, now it's in Q3, and the session has been immediately stopped with the Ferrari hitting the barriers at that final turn at a speed of around 120 miles an hour and going backwards into the Tech Pro barriers.
So let's see whose lap that has ruined. Verstappen got over the line. And Lando Norris then, who was on an absolute stonking lap, can't complete that. So that's cost him that run and a set of fresh tyres. So only 3 drivers have recorded a time before that rather crucial red flag. It was nowhere near as big an accident as we saw for Lance Stroll last year, but big enough to rearrange the back of that beautiful Ferrari.
And we've already seen Max Verstappen save a moment where he could have gone into the barriers there in Q2. Lando Norris, I think, would have been definitely on for a provisional pole had this not happened to Carlos Sainz, given his sector times. But let's have a little look here earlier on in the lap, as he was just slowing down, and he was starting a lap, Carlos Sainz. So slow to let Oscar Piastri through.
Yeah, and that's why it was nowhere near as big as we have seen in there, because he was literally... So basically, he's really backed off.
Yeah, I don't know if it was cold tires, dirty air, or it was fixed up.
Yeah, so he's had to back off a long way to get himself some space. And when he got there, nowhere near enough grip, as you say. He was focused on the steering wheel as well, wasn't he? But he did not rock up there at normal qualifying speed, thankfully for him and the car.
Max Verstappen's time has been deleted. The time that took Verstappen to provisional pole has been deleted because of those double yellow flags at turn 18. So
he pinned it through the corner then.
So there was a double yellow before the red flag. If there was a double yellow, all lap times get deleted to stop drivers, as you say, Martin, pinging it through that particular zone.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that will get looked at as to whether Max Verstappen didn't back off enough or didn't have enough time to back off enough.
If he's gone through double yellows and kept the throttle pinned, he's in trouble.
We've seen that in the past. His maiden pole could have been in Mexico a few years ago, but he went too fast through a yellow flag, admitted it in the press conference, and then the stewards took another look at it. Valtteri Bottas got it instead.
Yeah. Wasn't it Bottas who crashed as well?
I'd say Bottas
crashed, didn't he?
Oh, well, Ricardo got it instead then, sorry. But that lap time's been deleted, which means Oscar Piastri has that lap on the board. Nico Hülkenberg. Behind that, Lando Norris has used up a set of tyres to do 2/3 of a lap at high speed.
But that's concentrated it a bit, hasn't it?
Hasn't it just?
It's now just one run. They won't be long fixing. Obviously, the clock stops with red flags in qualifying because they don't in practice. The time just runs through. But I don't think it'll be long fixing that because the Tech Pro will push back into place. It's not like we got hopefully any barrier damage. They'll drag the Ferrari out, so it'll we should be up and running in 5-10 minutes, I'd have thought.
Well, sad sight for Carlos Sainz. Pole last year, walking back to the pit lane and to the garage this year. The good sign is that he climbed out of the car unharmed, and none the worse the wear, but he was just starting his lap and his tyres gone a little bit cold. Was there dirty air as he let Oscar Piastri swoop past him to get out of the way. Either way, that is his qualifying over, and he'll start 10th, but I'd imagine they'll want to take a look at the gearbox and the engine in the car there to make sure that both are okay and not needing to be changed. They won't be able to start work really on the car until tomorrow.
That's compromised his race, hasn't it, terribly. He'll start 10th unless there's any engine penalties or other penalties on the grid. And that will, he's got a fast car, but it's not an easy place to overtake. The 4th DRS zone this year might help him a little bit.
That's true. I'd like to think we're going to get a bit more overtaken. I hope we don't just get some DRS processions through there, but I know it's kind of putting yet another plaster on a situation to try and fix a problem, but at least it might fix the problem a little bit. That's Oscar Piastri making his way through the final corner, and then sideways and rearwards into the barrier comes Carlos Sainz. Not the way he would have wanted at all to have finished this qualifying. And this is Max Verstappen. Watch out for any double wave yellows. Well, there's the smoke from the scene. There's the flashing panel.
He backed right off. He's okay.
So, as long as he shows that he's lifted off the throttle as he goes through the incidents...
Why did my laptop get deleted? I crossed before it was red.
We're just looking into that, Max.
What they say is, if there are double wave yellows, all laps at that point are deleted. So there's no...
Red stops the session. Yellow pretty much neutralizes the session while it continues on before the red is then thrown if necessary.
But double wave yellows are very significant because that means there's danger on track. There's a car, there could be personnel, could be corner workers, whatever. So double yellows are taken extremely seriously for everybody's safety.
But looking at that, whilst yes, he's lost his lap time and he won't get that back, he backed off, and there shouldn't be any further investigation.
I agree with you. I think that's what's happened there. He's fallen into that regulation of, look, to dissuade everybody from kind of hanging on in there, we're just going to stop, delete all the lap times. So he's gone past the double wave yellow, and that's irrefutable. He lifted off significantly, that's irrefutable. So I think we've got status quo there. He's lost his lap, but he won't take any penalties for it.
Let's head down to Ted while the clear-up operation continues.
And I'm seeing loads of mechanics and drivers just waiting to get out there. How long have we got left, Crofty? I'm seeing 8 minutes, 4 seconds on a monitor across the pit lane from here. Good eyesight. And what I think we're seeing is that if they can go out, the likes who haven't set a lap time, i.e. everybody excluding Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg, on the same set which they're about to go out, or rather were in the process of doing that, then that's fine. Do the lap, come back in. It'll be very, very tight with only 8:04 left to go out then and do a new tyre run at the end. So yeah, we're just seeing all the engineers making their decisions on the pit wall. But Oscar Piastri, Crofty, I mean, that time is not going to be good enough for pole, is it? But the time in Q2 was, welcome to the party, Oscar Piastri. He's left it late, but he's going to be right up there. An interesting challenge now for Lando Norris. He felt that it was a bit of a waste using an extra set of tyres in Q2. But they had to do it. You've got to be in it to win it, as a famous Mr. Deecroft always says. But he did use, I mean, he didn't have to use an extra set. And now Lando is up against it, not least from his teammate.
Well, and does he put pressure on himself by trying to put 2 runs in, or does he keep it calm and just go for the 1 run in the knowledge that he has the ability to get that pole position and hope that nothing scuppers his chances like any more yellow or red flags? All to be decided for the man whose first job was making phone stickers. Anthony Davidson, what was your first job?
Yeah, I've just been having a look here, Crofty, and so first of all, yeah, the beauty of here, you can play it in slow motion and rewind to your heart's content. So the first thing that's going on, yes, Sainz is looking in the mirror to see cars coming past on his right-hand side, and then he's quite quick to make an adjustment on the steering wheel. There he goes, and he sets the car into the push mode, the attack mode, and you'll see that as he turns in just there. So that's push mode on the engine. Yeah, there it is. I'll just highlight that for you there. Push mode is activated. So that's the last thing he does, the last change he makes before he gets his foot down, which he does, and it coincides with a bump in the middle. And it's that bump that unsettles the car on cold rear tyres as well, and around it goes. That brings out the yellow flags, which you'll see on this shot here. I believe you've just been talking about that, Crofty, up there. So here are your double waved yellow flags inside the car. As drive, that means slow down and prepare to stop. Just remember that. That's why we have the double yellow flags. Very different from a single yellow. The tricky part is that it's so close to where Max is coming by. Right there. So they've just come out as he's going through the corner. So then you have to go onto his onboard. And this is a really difficult one to see where the flag actually is. I don't know what your image will be like wherever you're watching it, but as Max comes through the corner, we know that those yellow flags are somewhere over to that right-hand side. I think that's it there. So as he goes through, the double yellows are there, and straight away afterwards, you're faced with a green flashing light as you pass the incident there on the right-hand side. If I can just stop it in the right place. There we go. So then you're allowed to proceed to the line in front of you. So I just want to roll that one back and play it again, because I want to hear what he does with his throttle here. So let's all have a listen in. Does he lift enough? That's what the stewards will be looking at. I can't hear any sound. Oh, there we go. He does. He does. I'm just going to play that again. So let's have another listen in. The sound is a little bit delayed coming in. That, when I pointed at the screen, that's when he lifted off, and I think that's going to be absolutely fine. Back to you, Crofty.
Yeah, we certainly got that impression. And if you look, I think, at the mini sectors as well, available on the timing.
I lifted. I lifted.
No worries there.
It's very late that you can see that car.
Yeah, no problem, Max. You've lifted. No issue at all.
Which you clearly did, and as you're coming through that corner, with a car that's kind of buried backwards into the Tech Pro barrier, he's probably got a point there as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it was all very, very late for him, wasn't it? You'd normally expect to see some yellows hanging out before you get to the last corner, but they obviously hadn't had a chance to put them out at that point. So a lot of mitigating circumstances there for Max Verstappen. What he doesn't have is a 129.6 to his name.
He certainly doesn't. The calls are here, not just to play in concerts for the fans, but I do believe they are presenting the trophy for the pole position tonight. All 4 of them.
That's great. 22:07 here, 7 minutes past the hour wherever you are in the world is the restart time.
So that's going to be in 3 minutes time. So what would you do? Track temperature's going down a little bit. That should help the times improve. If you could get 2 runs in, would you want 2 runs, or would you want to make it a bit calmer for yourself and just go for the 1?
Well, you'd have to fuel, wouldn't you? You'd have to fuel the car up for 2 runs now. So I don't think you've got time to get out, do an out, a flying in, back into the garage, refuel and do it again. So,
but if you've got 2 new sets like McLaren have, would you want to take that chance to give yourself an extra chance, or does that make it too complicated?
Well, Lando had already taken quite a lot of life out of those, hadn't he? He'd done the fastest 2 sectors, hadn't he, on those tyres? So they're not new per se. Yeah, it might be worth doing, or just leaving it much later and going out right at the end. But you're going out on a used set with enough for 6 laps effectively.
Yep.
Of fuel. That strikes me as slightly pointless, but maybe they want to get their eye in.
We've got a minute and 45 seconds to go till the resumption. Should be just enough time to hear from Sergio Perez. He's with Prix later.
Checo, can you explain what the team tried to change overnight, how you tried to adjust the setup to be better today?
Yeah, we tried a lot of things with the car over the weekend. I'm a little bit surprised on what went wrong in Q2, really, because Q1 we had a really good progression. If anything, I did a mistake in my lap in Q1 where I lost around 3/10. Otherwise, I basically went slower by 2-3/10 in Q2, and it was all about the retires. I couldn't get them in the window, and that was the main struggle.
Yeah, we saw Max have quite a few moments as well. How knife edge has the car been tonight?
It's been tricky weekend so far. Tomorrow is going to be a long afternoon, so hopefully we are able to minimize the damage.
Yeah, I mean, listen, just finally, you did have that good comeback in Baku. Do you go in with a positive mindset tomorrow that the points are achievable?
Yeah, I think the overtaking will be really difficult tomorrow. So, but we will try everything with the strategy to hopefully come through and try to minimize the damage.
Thank you.
Don't forget, a very high chance of a safety car as well. We've never had a Grand Prix here in Singapore in each of the 14 previous that hasn't featured at least 1 appearance from Bernd Maylander in the safety car.
But of course, when they got rid of that section under the stadium, that took away the biggest cause of safety cars, didn't it? But still, we still managed to have a safety car last year, so.
We did. Almost time for the green lights. It is time for Ted, though. Ted?
Green light, green car. Can I give an honourable mention to Fernando Alonso, who is doing spectacular performances with this Aston Martin. When you consider Lance Stroll didn't get out of Q1, Alonso, he's going to be minimum 9th on the grid, isn't he, with Sainz's boff into the barriers. And Fernando, he doesn't have any new sets of softs left, I don't believe. And he's just doing outrageously great things with this Aston Martin. Did it in Baku, is doing it again in Singapore. 43, eh? Young at the age.
Some might call him a veteran, Ted, not me.
People get older, better as they get older, Crofty.
They certainly do. Highest driver in the championship without a podium as well, Fernando Alonso. So different. Last year, 8 podiums he got in 2023. So the green lights is on. The pit exit is open. And as you can see, Martin, everyone's in a real rush to get out, which I think, well, they're not. So that answers our question. So is it one run or 2?
Yeah, exactly. I think they'll fuel it to vapors plus whatever they've got to give to the FIA to check fuel at the end and put a set of tyres on, and it is a 1-lap shootout basically, isn't it? Because Piastri and Hulkenberg's times are kind of okay that are out there, but anybody who throws it in the wall won't get anywhere near them. And but we know that sort of 29s are the benchmark, aren't they, with only 2 drivers have a time, Piastri and Hulkenberg, 1:30.0 and 1:30.8. So we have a 9-car 1-lap shootout.
Carlos Sainz has been noted for crossing the track on foot. This is race control, noting him for crossing. I don't know if he looked left and right before he crossed the road, but what I do know is that the bit that he was crossing, there wouldn't have been any Formula 1 cars coming because they'd all been diving into the pit lane by that stage. And how else was he meant to get back into the pit lane? Because our commentary boxes used to be in that outside bit of the corner, Martin. It's a long way if you want to go around the outside.
Yeah, you're supposed to wait and get the permission of a marshal before you cross the track. And if they hadn't all recovered to the pit lane, then he might get a slap on the wrist for that.
Shouldn't be any more than a slap on the wrist. Certainly hope it wouldn't be any more than a slap on the wrist. Gianpiero Lambiase. So Max Verstappen's race engineer, he's got the job of head of racing, hasn't he, for next season, promotion at Red Bull, where he will be responsible for the trackside activities, not so much the engineering, but everything else that goes on trackside. Actually caught up with him today. I said, is it a lot more work? Are you up for this one? Is it a bit too much? He went, no, be absolutely fine. I'm doing most of it anyway at the moment, but we'll be absolutely fine on that, and he'll continue to be Max's race engineer as well.
It's a good time to be in Formula 1 if you've got a lot of experience and talent, like, for example, GP Lambiase, because teams are expanding, hiring, and there's good money to be made, and they get paid well to do a good job. And if you can get a promotion and get even more, then good luck to them. Absolutely.
So we'll see, I think, in the next minute and a half, cars starting to make their way out. I mean, if we get another red flag here, could be interesting. How would we form the grids if we have Oscar Piastri and Nico Hülkenberg with times, but from Verstappen down to Alonso, no one else makes a time, is it?
Yeah.
Drivers, the time they get out on the track?
They'll go back to Q2, I'd imagine, and use that as their last reference point.
So that backing off by Lando Norris might be quite crucial, because there will be others ahead of him, for instance, if they were to do that. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, but it's Piastri first. This is interesting. So McLaren choosing to go out absolutely first, not wanting to go out behind anybody else. That must be to treat the outlap the way they want to do it. Lando directly behind him, and then Fernando Alonso, and then everybody else. So McLaren not feeling that they want to be last across the line, Crofty, with the best track conditions. Not for them. They think it's important just to go out and dictate the pace on the outlap.
And the other thing, though, if you're out front and something happens behind you, you can still finish your lap.
Yep.
So it's a calculated risk. And I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer, but if you can get round and finish your lap, but the yellows are at turn 7, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Red flag, yes, it would.
Yes.
Double waved yellows, I'm thinking it would, because all lap times get deleted as standard. But you're right, it was just a yellow flag. Then that wouldn't affect those ahead of it. One Ferrari left in the game tonight, and it's Charles Leclerc who's been the closest rival with Lando Norris in terms of topping the timing sheets for FP1, 2 and 3. Leclerc started with the fastest time on Friday afternoon. Lando Norris has since taken over, and Fernando Alonso has just been noted for a possible
if the car in front of you play games, you are allowed to overtake him after the pit exit.
There we go. I actually feel nervous, because I used to feel nervous in qualifying when we had set qualifying tyres, and they do about 3/4 of a lap actually. But so I'm actually feeling butterflies in my stomach right now.
So Oscar Piastri, the only driver to complete every racing lap in 2023, that's 1,021 laps if you want to count them, sits in provisional pole at the moment, and alongside him on the provisional front row is Nico Hülkenberg with 220 races worth of experience, and Piastri with 39 races of experience. Now, there is plenty of potential for all that to change.
You may need to do some work on your outlap in terms of track position.
You mean past cars?
Yeah.
And he's trying to pass George Russell as they head through turn 8. Piastri is, meanwhile, getting on with it. On provisional pole for McLaren as Lando Norris, his teammate, crosses the line. It's about 20 seconds difference between them on the track. Where will they end up at the end of these 3 miles, Martin?
Well, this is it. This is why they get paid the big buck. This is why they're the best in the world. This kind of pressure on a track that's so tight, as I expected, Russell told not to let Verstappen pass him. Heavy braking down into turn 7. So 26.6 for Piastri. That's an okay first sector, nothing more.
Verstappen has got ahead of George Russell, so the instruction either came too late or George couldn't do anything about it. 26.6 for Piastri, 26.7 for Hulkenberg, 26.5 for Lando Norris through the first sector. Middle sector now, 37.6 for Oscar Piastri, who's increasing his pace and looking on course for the mid-129s if he can keep this one going. His teammate Lando Norris hasn't reached the end of the middle sector yet. He has now. 37.6. He's gone a little bit quicker than Oscar Piastri through that middle sector. Here we go, round the final corner with the young Australian, and it's a 129.9 for Oscar Piastri, who did not put in a best personal sector in that final bit, so that allows Lando Norris half a chance more to try and snatch that provisional pole and what would be a first pole from Oscar Piastri. Norris crosses the line. He is ahead then. It's a 129.5, and that might well be good enough, and the young fans in Papaya really like that one. But how is Charles Leclerc doing?
Leclerc, a decent first sector, a personal best, but nowhere near fast enough to challenge Norris at this point, nor is his middle sector. Looking good for Norris and Piastri with what we've got at the moment. It's Verstappen we'll keep an eye on.
And Hamilton too, and Russell are all within touching distance, but Hamilton's lost a little bit of time through the middle parts of the lap as Fernando Alonso crosses the line, can't break into the 129s under the flyover, and now round the final couple of corners, a corner that took out his teammate Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc is only fourth fastest, second row, and behind Nico Hulkenberg, whose time is still holding that third place. Here comes Lewis Hamilton, 4 poles previously in Singapore, and he's on the front row. What a final sector from Lewis Hamilton, and the crowd absolutely love that one. Here's Max Verstappen, no pole for him since Imola, and he's now on the front row, tantalisingly 2/10 behind Lando Norris, his nearest challenger in the championship. George Russell goes on to the second row. He aces the final sector. Here comes Yuki Tsunoda, 8th fastest for him.
Leclerc, time deleted. Ferrari, 9th and 10th.
That has been as bad a Q3 as Ferrari could ever have thought about, and I'm sure they weren't thinking about that, but I'm sure that this man was thinking about a pole. It's another one for Lando Norris. It's a 4th in the last 6 races. It's his highest qualifying in Singapore. He's got the championship leader right alongside him on the front row, and if you need any more reasons to watch the Singapore Grand Prix tomorrow, well, I can't think of them offhand, because this is going to be a corker.
Okay, mate, that's pole. Yeah, well, that's difficult lap. Difficult to drive, but well done, everyone.
Yeah, that was tremendous. Piastri left a big gap between him and Norris, and Verstappen, Hamilton and Russell piled right into that gap.
What a grid. What a grid this is going to be for tomorrow. 2 Ferraris charging through as best they can from row 5 on the grid. Alonso and Tsunoda on the 4th row of the grid. Hulkenberg, what a qualifying from him, alongside Oscar Piastri in the other McLaren. And for Nico Hulkenberg, that is his highest ever qualifying here in Singapore. George Russell just behind Lewis Hamilton on all Mercedes second row, and then Verstappen and Norris on the front row. The two contenders for the championship, one with a 59-point lead, one with all the momentum, and who surely is going to get away from pole and keep that lead at the end of the first lap eventually, but it hasn't happened so far.
No, you couldn't write the script better than that, could you? As you say, the 2 championship contenders up front, Mercedes. Wow, they've been all over the place, haven't they? But when it mattered, they're 3rd and 4th. Piastri 5th, as you say. Hulkenberg outstanding. Same with Fernando Alonso. Tsunoda will be happy with that as well. And Ferrari, stepping on their own tails, are the prancing horses. Sainz in the wool. And Leclerc went wide in turn 2 at the beginning of his lap and lost that time.
Just as he did in final practice as well, down at turn 2. And he was struggling to get temperature into his tyres and just didn't have the grip on turn-in. I get the feeling Max Verstappen will be very, very satisfied with the way this qualifying has ended, because he might have feared, certainly after yesterday, going into qualifying, that 5th or 6th might be his best effort, but you know, once again, he pulled the laps out of the bag when he needed to.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit slower than his Q2 time, which is highly unusual for Max, which shows you he's still struggling a little bit. He did a 29.68 in Q2. Now, normally you see this wonderful progression from the front row sitters, and Norris was 30.0, 30.0, 29.5, which was crucial, wasn't it, for him?
He really very much did save the best till last by half a second.
Yeah, and Piastri would have been second had he have matched his Q2 time. So he obviously had a bit of a scruffy lap in there. We saw the car moving around a little bit in turn 2 and 3, but we didn't see too much more of Piastri or any problems with Piastri later on. But, well, there you have it. That was a bit of a frenzy, wasn't it?
It certainly was. It's a 6th career Grand Prix pole for Lando Norris. It's Max Verstappen's 2nd front row start in the last 7 races. And for Lewis Hamilton, he's maintained his record of qualifying in the top 5 every time he's come to Singapore. James Hinchcliffe has the microphone and the pole sitter in front of him.
And we're here with your pole sitter, Lando Norris, 6th career pole position. It looked like a really tough battle out there. Tell us about your lap.
It was tough, especially through qualifying. I was finding it a little difficult to progress much and to get a lot of lap time. And more of the guys around seemed to get quicker and quicker, so it put me under a little bit more pressure, and especially with just 1 lap at the end. But it was good enough for pole, and I'm happy with that, especially here in Singapore. So a good feeling. I felt good all weekend. I felt confident. Maybe not so much in quali, but we got the job done.
You were quick all throughout practice, but like you said, you only got that 1 lap in Q3. How difficult was it to know you had to put it all on the line just once?
I mean, I like it. Like, it gets you, it gets your heart rate going, and it's good fun. My lap wasn't as good as my lap previous to the red flag, so there's always just a little bit more in it. But like I said, the car's been feeling good, and when you have a good feeling car and you're confident, you can go out and push and you can get the lap time. So I did the job I had to do today, and excited to see what we can do tomorrow.
Yeah, you said there was maybe a little bit more in it. We saw that your first sector wasn't quite as good as you had been previously. Yeah. You would have seen that in the car. So how deep do you have to dig knowing you're already coming up, taking yourself out of a bit of a hole off the start?
I mean, a little bit of it's just I had faith that we were quick, so I didn't have to over push, and I could just do what I've been doing the whole weekend, so that's a nice feeling that I didn't have to kind of go over and beyond. But it's tricky, like the car's moving around, it's bumpy, it's easy to break 1 meter too late all of a sudden. So you pay the price for over driving and over pushing. But I kept it cool and I did what I had to do, so I'm happy.
Exactly right. Do what you need to do. Congratulations. Cheers. Pole position for tomorrow's Grand Prix.
Thank you so much. Thank you, mate.
Max Verstappen will line up on the outside of the front row for tomorrow's Grand Prix of Singapore. Great result for you guys after a bit of a difficult start to the weekend. Tell us about the lap.
Yeah, I think the whole of qualifying actually went quite well. We managed to improve the car, run after run, already with FP3, and I'm happy to be on the front row if you look at where we came from yesterday. So yeah, Q3 was tough. Your lap gets, of course, cancelled with the double yellow. Then everyone only has 1 run, to do the lap, so you don't want to overdo it. So you want to stay within the limit. I take second. I'm happy with that.
There's been a lot of talk about tire preparation today in qualifying. How difficult was it to get those tires into that right window on just that 1 last run?
Yeah, so they're always quite difficult. Tires can give you a lot of lap time or lose you a lot of lap time. I think today for us in qualifying it worked all quite well, so I was happy with that. Yeah, here we are, second. Tomorrow, of course, a bit difficult to say. Singapore, a lot of things can happen, but at least we have a shot at it like this.
All right, guys, your championship leader starting P2 tomorrow. Lewis Hamilton, P3 on the grid for tomorrow's Grand Prix. Huge cheer from the crowd. So much success here at this racetrack. You must be so happy with this result after some of the struggles you guys have had in practice.
Yeah, firstly, the crowd's been incredible today when we did the fan forum here. So huge thank you to everyone for the support. So many of my followers have traveled here from all over, so I'm really grateful. I think Oh man, qualifying has been a disaster for me all year long. And I've just been working and working and working, trying to get myself back up there. And all of a sudden, the car came alive in qualifying for the first time in a long time in qualifying. And it's a little bit of a shame because we were getting into rhythm, and it was the same for all of us. But getting that lap at the end was a little bit tricky. But I think there was maybe a tiny bit more left in the car, but I'm really grateful for it. And mechanics, we've been moving up and down on balance. We changed everything this weekend on each day, and the mechanics have just been faultless. So I want to say a big thank you to them, and I hope that we're in a good position to fight for the front tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, huge improvement, obviously, over single lap pace. Do you think the changes you've made to the car are going to translate to good race pace tomorrow?
That I have no idea. You know, one day at a time. I mean, it was a lot better today. It was the first time we had any front end, and you know, we've seen it. McLarens have been so quick each weekend, so I don't know. I think with management, I'm hoping we can try and keep up with these guys. Maybe not the McLarens, but we'll be given everything.
Well, it's a long, hot race tomorrow. Go get some rest, get some fluids. Congratulations on a great start.
Thanks.